Well, welcome to Association Chat, an online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm the host of Association Chat, KiKi L'Italien, and let me ask you this question. What does it take to be a successful association CEO today? Today, I'm talking with the author of the book. He's the esteemed, everyone seems to know him, Paul Belford. He is the author of the book, The Association CEO Handbook, a personal guide to leadership development and career fulfillment and association management. It's now in its second edition. Paul Belford, thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, I'm very happy to be here, very much so. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so excited. I have to tell you, I have the book here. I've been looking through it. Our good friend Al Ricker gave this to me, and I've been making notes, taking notes, and I've been anticipating our conversation for a while now. And I have to ask you, my very, very first question that I have for everyone out there is, what's unique about being an association CEO versus just a CEO for a for-profit? What's so unique about being an association CEO?
Well, it's often said that the association CEO never owns it. And that's accurate, but it's not complete. The fact is nobody else owns it either. No one person owns it. If only one person owned the association, it would be worthless. What you get to be as being an association CEO is to affect an entire industry, an entire professional discipline. It allows you the conference room. It allows you to hear other people, to listen about things and learn about things, and then try to find out how the whole thing could be better if they work together towards a goal, and having the skills and the abilities to get them coalesced and get the consensus done, and then to do the presentation or to prepare to them to try to move something in either an academic setting or in a legislative session, or just to make companies work better. So find new opportunities. So that is I would say, if anything, what is unique, certainly against the corporate executive, is the scope of their impact.
All right. Well, I mentioned the book right at the top because it is something that has undergone a lot of change, that gets a lot of attention. And I was surprised that being in the association industry for as long as I have been, that I personally hadn't come across it, but it is something that I think is extremely valuable for any association CEO or anyone thinking that they're going to step into this role. So I want to talk about this for a second. The Association CEO Handbook, everyone. Can we talk about what makes the Association CEO Handbook different? What makes it special and different from other leadership books that are out there?
Well, ironically, there are, and I think this is a low number. There are 7,000 organizations in the National Association the National Directory of Trade and Professional Association. There are 7,000 in there. All right. There are 400 National Association of Realtors chapters. There have to be how many out of the Medical Association? There has to be minimum 10,000 people who are making in this country $100,000 a year or more as an association CEO or chief staff executive, whatever designation you want. All right. So that is the purpose of the book. That is the question, I guess. Go to the purpose of the book is to have them have a matrix to talk about what they do and to think about what they do. There's nothing that exists right now, all right, where you can say, where does it start? What are the elements and what are the parts of it? So in developing the book, we made it so that a person who's not done it before can read through it. But as important, I think more importantly, it's the person who's been doing it for 3 or 4 years, has developed their own mindset about it, has a ton of information about it, but doesn't know how to apply that information in ways that they can use it. So by breaking it up into the 6 elements of the association CEO position, I hope we're going to help them think about this is that part of it. Why is it different than the corporate? What are the commonalities? What are the fundamentals I'm dealing with here? And then how deliverables, which are generally seen as something you're doing for your board, how to focus on them in developing a relationship with the board. So there's a deliverable section. It's not how do you run a good meeting. It's when you're running a good meeting, keep in mind this, that as this is done, as you're bringing these people in and doing that, you're increasing your relationship and strengthening your relationship with your board members. And then, as the book talks about, something called the zone of complexity, you develop a close relationship with them. I'll just get to one point on that quickly. In the book is something called the management leadership continuum. And I have tested this with many association CEOs, and this is how it goes. You come in an organization, you're running it, they grade you on management. As you manage, they'll give you more leadership. And you have to be aware of this. And that's what the book points out. As you manage, you get to the point where you're going to be able to give them more leadership. And then you come to a point where you get into what's called the zone of complexity. That's where you have managed to the point where they're giving you a strong role in leadership, but you can't take it all.
I've got the zone of complexity up. I knew I'd be able to flip to one of these. Yes.
So it explains not only that this is going to happen, it says you're responsible for knowing it's going to happen, and you're responsible for knowing that you are in it and you want to maximize it. All right. And if you try to go through the zone, you're going to take too much leadership and they'll stop listening to you. If you don't get to the zone, you won't be seen as somebody who can be able to take them to another level, and they won't listen to you. So the book makes the reader aware that there is something called the zone of complexity. It's very real, and nobody on the board is necessarily going to know about it, and none of them care about it. That is your responsibility to know that it's there and to try to move the organization so you and the board are in the zone of complexity, and that's how you're going to get to be a partner of it. That's the thing for example.
So my question for you is that your favorite section of the book? Do people have a favorite section of the book? Do you hear people mention certain parts that they're always saying, oh, the zone of complexity, or, oh, the deliverables. I'm so glad you have that list.
I don't know whether readers do. My favorite is the first section. All right. How the change in leadership or general forces you're always dealing with, and how they apply specifically to the association CEO, all right, in the CEO position, and understanding what changing leadership. And as they are a dynamic, they work together, and it's understanding how they work together and understanding where the leadership role is of the association CEO. And in the last page of that section, it describes how the association and the corporate organizations are different. And where it is the corporation CEO has only one organization that they're managing. And I should have had the thing out, excuse me. For the association CEO, there are two structures. All right. There's the structure of the organization that they're running. In addition to that, there is the structure of membership. So what you have here, it's an explanation of how it's different. And in the bottom part, your authoritativeness is basically very similar to what it would be in a corporation. Very similar, especially for trades. Up here, your impact is inferential and advisory. And that bifurcation of your responsibilities is the number one thing that an association CEO can never get too good at. All right. Yeah. Understanding where you stand within the context of the organization. All right. Nobody owns it. And what they are literally paying you to do is to help the organization work better, and also to direct it better, to influence how they're thinking about what they're doing for a living and how that fits in with the industries around it or with the disciplines around it. I think it's a fascinating job. I really do. I think I got to tell you about something. This really happened. Why else would I say it? I was having lunch with this fella, and it was a he guy. And and we've known one another, we've been to seminars together and everything. So it was a lovely spring afternoon. We're outside, and I looked right at him and I said, tell me, which one of your board members would you switch your job with? Now, remember, this fellow was making pretty good money. He's working on a board with people making 4 or 5 times how much money he's making. So I asked him, which would you swap with? And he literally sat back. And then he thought about it. He said, none. And there's no experience I've had that more points to the uniqueness, what I call capital A association CEO.
Mm-hmm.
after I did the first edition of the book and working with the second, that's what I am trying to do. If I have a cause here, is to get people to focus on the fact this is a specific thing that a minimum 30,000 people in this country are working their way forward to become. That there are 10,000 that are it already. And these are people that are highly functional in what they do. One of the values of an association, I'll read that thing off again to you. I was always trying to come up with word. What makes an association, a trade association, what makes it so important? Why is it important?
Yes.
And it took a long time to figure this out, but I finally came to it. It was at the close of a search I did about 5 years ago. And it was a relatively small company industry. And these were all competitors, and literally. And they were trying to find a CEO that would lead them. And the person still is doing a great job. And I realized it's the intensity that they're bringing to it. So what associations do is they are essential. By the way, I'm not saying that casually. They are essential to the vibrancy of the national economy.
Absolutely. I mean, can you say that one more time? Because I think everybody needs to hear this.
Yes.
I'm definitely an association evangelist. Love it and have for a long time. Please say that part again about.
Now read it amongst three, but the idea
Okay.
is associations contribute directly and substantively to the vibrancy of the national economy. Absolutely. Here's something else they do. They contribute to the depth and expansion of its knowledge base. What this economy has and this country has is a phenomenal knowledge base. And associations play an absolutely critical role in that. And ASAE has some data on this. I will characterize it with this. This is a factoid. I looked up factoid. It's not a bad thing. It's sort of like a fact, but you don't have enough research, so you're going to say it anyway. So if you take a 55-year-old vice president of a chemical company who's a PhD from Purdue in chemistry or engineering, whatever it might be, what he knows about chemistry or engineering, what he's learned since his 30th birthday to his 55th, in those 25 years, 65 to 70, maybe 90% all comes from an association. The articles, the meetings, access, that's what associations are doing, is they're taking a lot of the disciplinary, the ones that have a discipline, all right? And they all have a discipline. That's what they are legal, all right? So what people know, all right, they know tremendous, they know through an association in one way or another. And the very fact of our knowledge base as a nation, especially in the services industry economy, since we have, there is nothing more important than information and knowledge. In fact, it has to be the most important thing. Now, let me just take this. But at the beginning of the book, right facing the introduction page, I talk about associations and what they do. So this is, if you'll bear with me, associations, they support organizations and individuals from every sector of the economy and in every field of study in doing what they do better. An association CEO's function is to make other people help other people do what they do better. To repeat, they contribute directly and substantively to the vibrancy of the nation's economy and to the depth and expansion of its knowledge base. That's an absolute fact. They also enable organizations and individuals to deal more effectively with disruptions in particular and with change in general. So as you get into this book, it says at the bottom, this is what being an association CEO is all about. That's what it's all about. That's what you're doing.
Well, so this is actually a great segue into my next question, because this enable organizations and individuals to deal more effectively with disruptions in particular and with change in general. That sure sounds like a lot of what we've been dealing with recently in recent years, with everything from societal change, technological change, and then of course with the pandemic and doing things like changing the way that our workforce operates. And so in this climate of massive change and upheaval, it's not even disruptive. It's beyond disruptive. I want to ask you, you have helped more than 300 association executives find a new position and primarily at the CEO level. What has changed about the role of the association CEO over the past 10 years? What have you seen change? And has anything changed about the role since COVID-19?
Uh, I'll take COVID-19 and put it in a quick thing. It's an
Okay.
accelerator.
Yeah.
What it did was accelerated what was already happening. And that's a mega happening. All right. And we can get back to that later. But the thing is, we were already going there. As
Mhm.
far as where we're going to work, how we're going to relate to one another, and what skills are going to be needed, and what is going to affect certain people who do things well and others not so well. So that's COVID. I started doing this 30 years ago. And in the 30 years, the beginning of it was, what was driving it was that, by the way, 30 years we're talking about, I started in 1990. 1990, 81, 83, this is when there was a major adjustment as to how corporations were built and made. And what happened here was, by the way, this reflects a number of major studies and stuff. But I mean, we're talking about basically the top 1,000 companies, and it's all corporate we're talking about. But in any event, what had developed over the years was a 7-layer organization. And the top layer was where the CEO was. The bottom layer, 7, all right, was here. Then there was 6, then there was 5, then there's 4. What they discovered was that levels 6, 4, and 2, the only thing they did was pass what levels 7, 5, and 3 did up. And the IT world, the idea of sitting here and not having people running papers between, I can remember taking papers out to a typist and bringing it back, and there's all, and then being able to communicate. One of the really crazy things is that we were in Washington. Farmer was in Washington, and these pharmaceutical companies all over the country. They're always faxing stuff. So somebody was, our headquarters was on 15th and L, and there was somebody over by Georgetown. And he said, "Can you fax it to me?" I said, no, we'll have to run it over to you. He said, "What?" And I had in my mind that you faxed, it was called LDX, long distance xerography. That's what it was called. Well, my mind said, it has to be long distance, so you shouldn't fax it.
Oh my gosh.
Service, get a copy and have the courier run it over there. That's the sort of brains that, people with mine in particular. This is what happened with, with the word processors, with the communication systems.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't need 6, 4, and 2. AT&T cut out 40,000 jobs in 91, 92, and 93. It was all over the newspaper, screaming and yelling.
Mm-hmm.
So the big question was, we'll say that of the 40,000 jobs, there were at least 50 people making $500,000 a year and more in salary, which means they were costing their companies another $250,000 to carry them. All right. They didn't know that they weren't needed at all. You didn't need them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the first shock is a bunch of these people in the street not making any money. The other shock is levels 7, 5, 3 are going crazy with productivity. And that's what happened in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, back to associations. I'm talking trades here primarily. People didn't have the time to take from their businesses any longer to go to a 1-week-long meeting. They couldn't do it. Trade association would have meetings through the 80s into the 90s, and the location and the date of the annual meeting, this is a little bit overdone, but it certainly was there, was the grandchildren's vacation of the chair, because they were going to go to a 1-week meeting.
Yeah.
They filled up the morning, so some sort of meeting, so everybody felt good about the taxes. All right, and then they played in the afternoon. They met with everybody, and then you started getting mixed incomes into families, where there was income thing, whereas previously one member of the family would go with the other member of the family and think this is a real deal because you're getting to go to someplace in Florida or California or something. Now, this member of the family, that's annual leave. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm talking about things that affect the role of the CEO and associations in general. The meeting started to go Friday to Monday. All right. And they were pretty intense in time. You actually started to do things. You could have meetings now that were more productive and effective. You didn't even have to meet. You didn't even have to go there. All right. What it did to the association CEO board was getting their time. And there was a term that was being used for a while, and that was that the CEO was responsible for making sure that the CEOs from the members came because they didn't have time to go. So one of their functionalities became be sure that they don't start sending their EVPs because that'll be the end of the association. You need the decision.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
So what happened in all of this was that you needed more leadership in the CEO. That's a long way to get there, but that's it's important to understand the fundamentals of how we got there. So it's not going to go away.
Yeah. I see that happen with some boards too, where there's real concern when it begins to be that the board position is being sort of handed off to somebody who is not in that more senior decision-making sort of role. And so it's interesting to see how those things happen and to watch those dynamics over time. I also think that watching the decision-making process about where these large annual conferences are being held and how involved the extended families can be, how that seems to be a pendulum that swings back and forth, because I know since COVID, there are a lot of people who are making more decisions based on whether their families can travel with them now, because they've had time to take a chance and say, I kind of like that family of mine. I kind of want them to be around.
Yeah,
and it's fascinating.
By the way, that's a very interesting point. A very interesting point. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, one of the things like in the book, there's something called preferred board members, competencies and characteristics.
Mm-hmm.
And this is on page 33. What is it now? I'll just read through them. Because in other words, this is one of the commonalities, one of the 18 commonalities, and this is what I have found over the years and whatever. And what would a CEO want to have on their board? Members who have a sense of purpose and value in the industry and the profession. They know what's going on. And understanding what associations are and do when they arrive. An appreciation of the past with a vision for the future. Purposeful attention to diversity and demographics. We got that at an ASAE session. Character and clear sense of accountability. Real guys, real people. Stature in the field of the member of organization. We were talking about before, that's what reminded me of this. Engaging persona with an instinct to listen and a comfort and effectiveness in a team environment. So when you are a CEO, all right, and you're going along in the process and you get into the zone of complexity, these are the things you want to have in the people coming in. And now what also did the association CEO and the board member have? What is the basis of compatibility is, I believe, is this: a strong orientation toward and respect for the broad and deep horizon. So the person who's got a factory someplace in, we'll say Iowa. I'm sorry, Iowa, but you got factories out there. One guy's out in Iowa, another fellow is in Nebraska. The person in Iowa, all right, he's thinking about 5 and 10 years down the line. He's looking over the Mississippi or out to the Pacific, but the other person isn't. That's the person that joins the association. That's one of the things they get from it. What they get from it, we call a community, but more importantly, it's an identity. And another thing that's in the book, if I could just talk about this, when we do a search, one of the first questions we ask the members of the search committee is, what are the 3 most important benefits to membership? They always said networking was one of them. 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10 would say networking. We kept writing networking down. And then we said, well, what exactly is networking? What is it? Is this the reception before, or what's the ball game or whatever? So we broke networking into 4 elements. All right. For the trade association, it's market development. That's where they went. Market development. Market development means I'm going to get more customers and I'm going to get a higher quality customer. That's what I'm doing. The next one is corporate development. I'm going to go to this session and I'm going to find out how that person in Oregon is making widgets for $10 less than I do. Or I'm going to find out the programs that I can use to make my people more efficient. The next one is community. I just want to be around. I live and die on widgets. I love it. I want to be with people who do that. And the fourth one is the serendipitous synaptic event, the aha moment.
Yeah.
Now, on the member side, the first 2 are different. It's professional development and it's career development. What would be useful for associations when they looked at what they were providing and looked at their face, their screen, or whatever it might be, how can we get more credit for what we're doing in networking? You do that by specifying this is a networking activity. This is what we've got going on here. This is a benefit to you. So, but that, by the way, falls into the commonalities area.
Yeah.
Right? Is that your experience? And the question, the way the thing works and discusses, is this your experience? Is this what networking is for you? Then we get into fundamentals and whatever. So, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to interrupt for a moment and just tell people, I mean, if you have the book, that's on page 43, the networking, the specifics. That's one of my favorite parts of the book is how you pulled out the different types of networking and this is just so user friendly, this whole handbook. And how you ask the question at the end, so what steps can you take to promote and develop meaningful networking opportunities that your members will identify as a specific benefit to membership? And I just think that it's really helpful to pull those different types of networking out, because so often on those surveys, you will get the response, a very generic, networking is important to me. Well, what kind of networking? And sometimes if something's missing the mark, it might be because it's the wrong type of networking that you're focused on, that you're not really looking at the networking that your particular members hold to be the most meaningful. I just get so much out of this, Paul. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to let people know who have the book, that's where it is.
One other thing about the book is all structured toward the CEO partnership. All right.
Yeah.
And the board CEO partnership. And throughout the book, the notes beneath is pointing out to the CEO that the CEO is responsible for so much of this. Our partnership, we go through there are different parts of it. In fact, I think there might be a note or two here. But the idea of the partnership is that, first off, it doesn't just happen. Right? It happens because of the forces at play. Now, the forces at play are 2. One is the rule of tiers. The rule of tiers is this, that the board basically owns the organization, but to no member of the board is it a tier 1 responsibility. All right? The CEO doesn't own a stick of it, and to the CEO, it's their only professional responsibility. There's also the rule of the 2 authorities. Authority of definitions of the word authority. The first definition is command and control, the power to command. That's the first rule of an authority, first definition. The second is a firm basis for knowing and acting. So the way that plays into the association situation is the board has the power to command. The CEO complementarily should be a firm basis for knowing and acting, an authority, and what associations do. And you combine those, and you get the board CEO dynamic, and that is the CEO engages and shares in their firm basis for knowing and acting as to what an association can do in advising the board in the beneficial use and engagement of his power to command. That's how they work together. But how do you get to a partnership?
Right.
The way you get to a partnership is through the rule of tiers and rule of authorities is at a board meeting, when big things are being discussed, Nobody at that table has more at risk than the CEO.
Right.
All right.
Right.
The
Yeah.
CEO is the person who's going to say X, Y, because of A or B, and we ought to go to D. All right. And they're going to follow it. And they say, well, that's what the CEO says. All right. Why are we going to do this? Because there's a partnership. There is an understanding in the years that we've worked with this person, and all this person has done for us.
Mm-hmm.
That person is going to give us exactly what this organization needs, because this organization's success is at least as important to him as it is to us.
Right.
That's what a partnership is.
Well, and I'm sorry, that part where there has to be trust and competency and character for that to work, for the board to support, the CEO, and to look at them and to say, yeah, that CEO is carrying that risk. But on the topic of risk, it's easier for the people who are not in that CEO position to sit back and to say, look, this is a time where there's a lot of change happening, and you're a leader, and you're supposed to be the one that is making all of these big dramatic changes. It's a lot harder to be in that CEO role and to make those decisions, because there are so many connected pieces. And where I'm going with this is talking about the role of the CEO as entrepreneur in a time when we very rarely have associations that are relying only on dues for their main source of income or revenue, and where we've seen a lot of the association revenue models change. So what is your view of the CEO, the association, capital A, CEO, taking on that role of entrepreneur for an association? How do you suggest that they, I guess, look at entrepreneurship as an approach? And what are the challenges and opportunities with that? There are a lot of questions in that, but you're a smart man, and I'm hoping you can dissect what I'm trying to ask you, which is
Let's do one thing. Let's do a little wordsmithing here.
okay.
So there's entrepreneur and there's entrepreneur-esque.
Oh, yes. And yes.
Okay, so an entrepreneur, a strict definition, says this is a person, well, in casual terms, in bar talk, as I say. All right, the entrepreneur is a person who has the capability and the authority to bet the whole deal on a new product.
Mm.
No association CEO will ever have that.
Yeah, right.
Okay, now I would say, again, back to trade associations, I would say at least 6 or 7 out of 10, all right, position announcement we develop or profiles, they want an entrepreneur and they write it down. It's really 9 out of 10. They all want an entrepreneur in the sense of a person who can see an opportunity, which is a big part of entrepreneurs, and arrange resources in the context of seizing it and advancing. And they love to hear this. All right. In other words, they want to hear they like a person who can come in and say, you know what we could do over here is, and they say, write it up, give us a look at it. They love that. But at the end of the day, the organization is not designed to make money on a new product. All right. It's designed to do something, all right, that's needful in thing. But the mindset of an entrepreneur who can make a good case about applying some of their reserves to something that will impact their ability to lobby or to advocate or increase their ability to raise the size of the show. And it's not just money, it's the profile.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
This is one of the more interesting things. I did a search for a group, and this isn't any secret. Well, let's put it this way. I won't name the industry, but this is a fact. And this fellow had been there about 15 or 20 years. This is what this one particular person got done. He was with a large association that had a lot of really small companies making very low tech products, items. There was as always, there are new ways of making these things. The people who were in that world had their own association, and it was starting, it was going, then it was failing. So the association is failing. This person, he goes to the board and says, listen, let's face it, folks, you guys are back here, with the Conestoga wagons and people driving Ferraris around you. Well, the Ferrari guys have an association, it's on its back. So they merged. And all of these, I never thought this is entrepreneurial, all of these Conestoga wagons are having dinner with the people making the Ferraris. And they ended up with someplace in Northern Virginia, the designation not known exactly, training program with these huge machines that are being made by Siemens or whatever it might be, helping these other companies do that. And they all got into it. And the really amazing thing is the company structure of the surviving thing, there wasn't a company in it. It was more than $15 or $20 million maybe. But they had these two huge manufacturers of the machines that make this stuff. They're there. And so you end up with a very financially healthy trade association that was a venue for the transition from the Conestoga to the Ferraris in an industry. And that's what an entrepreneur can be in an association. So the trade association people almost universally want entrepreneur-esqueness in the people they're talking to.
Yeah.
That's routine. I would say it's in all the positions. Well, there are a lot of them. So that's been a big part of it. But it goes back to the role. It goes back to the people who are in it. When I started doing the searches, how did it work? It was routine. It's a trade association, $1.5 million, 6 employees, someplace in Virginia. All right. And the person I was replacing had been there for 30 years. The person's spouse had an annual meeting responsibility to take the spouses of the members on a picnic.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
They wanted to meet the spouse.
Yeah.
All right. That was part of it. If you were over 50, this is no kidding. If you're over 50, he's going to be gone. You have to do this again. All right. That was very rarely there. Then I don't know when, but I know when. It was in the mid to late 90s. And to be more precise, you had people coming to these meetings that were taking time away to do something else. And they also saw more opportunities what an association could do for them. So the association became more important, more useful, but they had less time. So then when you started, we could bring in people who were 52, 53, 54 in, and I say, hey, I know that person. That's okay. All right. And then we started there. And I placed people in CEO jobs with 63 and 64, and that was 10 years ago. All right. So I think exactly where we started on this, but that's the change. The difference is they want people who can do things. I try to get into a search committee's mind right in the beginning. Says, don't worry about year 6. Who here is going to be on the board in year 6? Used to be boards had people who've been on the boards for 15 or 20 years routinely.
Yeah.
Who's going to be on board in year 6? Who here can tell me what your biggest issue is going to be in year 6? So don't worry about year 6. And by getting that into their mind, you open up the candidate pool by literally millions. I mean, it doesn't really work out that way. But all of a sudden, somebody who's 58, 59, or 60, they're looking okay. All right. I mean, if you get past 60, according to the actuarial tables, you're going to make 65 or 66 for sure. And then you're going to work another 10 years past that.
Yeah.
And also, there used to be a resistant to a really good, crazy, oh, that guy's going to leave. That person will leave here in 5 years. But you got 5 years. And you got an organization that's stronger, and you can recruit stronger. So don't worry about year 6. That's been one of the major things that, and that's come to fruition.
Don't worry about year 6. I think that that's such great advice when you're thinking about trying to bring in a new CEO, because it's like, okay, granted, we want you to be thinking about, like, what are the insights you can bring to the organization for the direction that the organization is going in. But when it comes to getting the right person, you're making these people need to make decisions on what's happening now.
Mhm.
And so get the right person for right now. And yeah, don't worry about year 6 on, as far as that's concerned. I want to get back to because I know that we only have about 5 minutes left in our conversation today. I want to get back to the association CEO leader, some advice that you can give them from what you've seen over the years and where you see things fitting in today's environment. Because you've certainly, I mean, and you've been incredible in sharing how things have changed in that role over time, and the things that have stayed the same. But what's maybe the most valuable piece of advice that you could give to an association CEO today?
Uh, hmm, I've never been a CEO. I presume that's obvious. I don't know why it's obvious.
Why would it be obvious? I would say I'll
Well,
give you that. It's honorary title. No.
I am selling a book, so
Yes.
we go back to commonalities, all right? And in commonalities, there's a definition of the word meaning. And where is it? It's why, what brings, I'll tell you what, yeah, here's what. Yeah, okay. So there is something in here about the association CEO leadership. On page 21 is the characteristics of your successful association CEO. So in answering your question, I'll tell you about the characteristics.
Okay.
And we'll read a little bit here, then I got another one. Okay, one. Taking true professional satisfaction from group achievement, oriented toward the broad and deep horizon, inclined to context of specifics, i.e. mission driven, caring, in need of meaning, the purpose of life. And I'll put it in right here. The word meaning we use all the time. What we mean when we're using meaning most times is an act or condition that contributes to getting better of things.
Mm-hmm.
That is what I believe associations were created for, and not all of them. All right. The fact and the state of contributing to the getting better of things. So I think of the advice I'd give an association CEO is, are we making things better? Is what we're doing making things better? Because that's this fellow who didn't want to swap jobs. That's what he thinks he's doing. He was a he.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll go on. Awareness of and an ear for the needs and interests of others. These are characteristics. Synergistic by outlook and effect. An association should be synergistic. We cover this in something we call communicativity. All right. Communicativity is everything all mixed into one, and it's just happening. And you go to the good association meetings and you can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a good association exec, they do this instinctively. They have people talk to one another. Draw an instinct for consensus and an ease in building it. Drawn to the strength of a group united in purpose and voice, preferring community setting. So what I came up with is a convoluted name, and I'll give credit to a guy named Scott Hunt. He's a great CEO. And he and I talked, and this is what came out of the talk. The word is flexilience. So it's comprised of flexible, resilient,
Yes.
and patient. So flexible, able to adapt, resilient, able to recover, patient, neither hasty nor impetuous.
But am I able to use it in Scrabble? That's what I want to know.
No, you can't. This is the only book it's in.
I lose on that front. No surprise there. Thank you, Scott Hunt.
Really, I really do think it is. The people who really succeeded, and you can take them into pretty, big deal industries. All right, look at what's her name, Susan Neely.
Mm-hmm.
She came
Mm-hmm.
up with a 7-ounce can, I think, didn't she?
Did she? I didn't know that.
She
Is that
did.
true?
Yeah, I think there's some. She was
Susan Newton's done so much. I wouldn't be
group,
surprised,
that
though.
group reoriented itself in as well. She was there, and I'll bet I don't even know her or not. I barely know her, but
Yeah.
she's one of the most impressive people you'd ever meet.
Wow.
Right. And, but that group came into that, after she got there, they changed how they did things. Let's put it that way. But the meaning was meaning. They were contributing to things getting better. So that's the answer to that question.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Al Rickard is the one who told me that about this book. And it led to my interview with you. And I just want to do a quick shout out to him because he is not just a supporter of yours, but also a supporter of Association Chat. And I feel like this has been an awesome, just spectacular chance to get to know Paul Belford, but then also Paul Belford's thoughts on the association CEO. So I want to ask you, where can more people learn about the Association CEO Handbook and about your work as well?
Association CEO Handbook.com,
Okay.
www.associationceohandbook.com. We are redoing it's up now, so you can buy the book there and learn more about it. That's been around for a couple of 3 years. We're redoing that. We'll have that out in a couple of 3 weeks. And what we're doing with it now is it's a way to buy the book, and it's a way association CEOs support association CEOs through 3 programs to better get to know and work with their C-suite. So I'm very happy for the opportunity to speak about that because I'm very excited about it, spending a lot of time on it. And I'm really, I very much appreciate this opportunity to speak with you and to meet all the fine folks that are watching it.
Well, thank you so much. And Paul, I definitely would like to invite you to come back again sometime. Let's talk about the association CEO and where things are headed with them for the association industry. There's so much happening in the industry. And we spoke a little bit before this, and I too believe that this is a time when it is a great important time to be an association CEO. That associations are so very important in the world right now and in this nation right now. And so thank you, Paul Belford, for being our guest today.
Well, thank you, KiKi, for having me. I really very much appreciate it. Good
All
night.
right. So there you have it. What did you think about our episode today? I have to tell you that Paul's just phenomenal, and what fantastic stories. But I also, or I should say, and I also really appreciate the Association CEO Handbook. Listen, Paul's amazing. His stories are great. The Association CEO Handbook he authored, I think it's a must have for everyone, anybody in the association space, even if you are not an association CEO. If you work with the association CEO, it is important to have this book just so you have an understanding, a better understanding about associations and the role of the CEO in the association industry. So with that, I hope you learned something that you can use every day in your life. And I hope you got a lot out of this episode. As always, I hope you continue to ask questions every day because, as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. Have a great rest of the week, everyone.